When U.S. President-elect Joe Biden gives his inauguration speech today, he will also be managing a stutter. And while his verbal stumbles have caused some to question his mental fitness, or speech therapist and assistant professor of communicative sciences and disorders at New York University, Eric S. Jackson, says people thinking you're slow, less intelligent, or anxious are just some of the many realities for people who live with a stutter. And Eric S. Jackson is joining us this morning. Good to have you with us on this historic day.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
During the election, we saw a lot of jokes about Biden's misspeaking, and you say this comes from people just not understanding a stutter. So what is a stutter?
Well, in the most general sense, and I should say, actually, as I start here, that I'm a person who stutters as well. So if there's anything you want to ask me about my own stuttering, that's completely okay. In the most general sense, stuttering is a person knowing what they want to say, but in that moment, their body breaking down and them not being able to say it. And this is due to a combination of genetic, neurological, and environmental factors. But the important thing to know about stuttering is that you can't always see it. And this is because people who stutter learn very early on that there's a stigma associated with stuttering, that stuttering is bad and it's something that you're not supposed to do. So there's a lot of shame around stuttering. And for lots of people, the experience of stuttering becomes trying to hide or conceal stuttering.
You believe, you've watched very closely, both as an academic and someone who lives with a stutter, Joe Biden's movements. And you believe his eye movements, the blinks, the downward glances, are part of his ongoing efforts to manage his stutter while he's speaking to millions of people. Can you elaborate on some of those more for us?
Sure. These are what we call accessory or compensatory behaviors. For some reason, moving other parts of our bodies sometimes helps or sometimes seems to jolt us out of a moment of stuttering. We're not really sure why this happens, but these behaviors can become very ingrained in how a person stutters, and they really only complicate the stuttering problem. So we wouldn't introduce these as strategies in therapy, and in fact, we often work with people on trying to reduce these sorts of behaviors.
There are some techniques that have proven to be effective. Joe Biden often refers to the Academy Award-winning film The King's Speech. When talking about his stutter and giving a speech, he marks up his public addresses with slashes to show where he should be pausing. It's just one of the techniques he uses. What else have you observed about his techniques?
It's interesting. I haven't really noticed any other strategies that Joe Biden uses. I know he's talked about reading poetry as a kid, which was probably a way for him to learn how to phrase or chunk or to pause. And this, the benefit of this type of strategy is that it reduces the overall rate of speech, which does seem to help a person move through stuttering in an easier way. But it is important to point out that using these speaking strategies can be using any speaking strategies can be extremely challenging in the sense that the person who stutters needs to think about what they're saying while at the same time thinking about how they're going to use their speech system or their body to talk. So if people want to use speaking strategies, that's great. As a speech therapist, I love working with people on speaking strategies in therapy, but there should be no expectation that all people who stutter should be using speaking strategies.
Eric, just before we let you go, I'm going to take you up on your invitation to ask you, as a person who lives with a stutter, how do you feel watching Joe Biden about to become one of the most powerful world leaders on the planet, giving a public address, knowing mentally what he is going through as he gives those addresses?
Yeah, I think we have a golden opportunity here, honestly. The public discourse about stuttering has already increased tremendously, and with this, I think we have an opportunity to spread awareness about stuttering and increase understanding about what stuttering really is. And this is going to normalize stuttering so that it's more okay to talk about it. And the fact that a person who's holding arguably the highest profile job in the world, I realize I probably sound like an American here, but the fact that he stutters sends a message that you can stutter and still have an important job. And for kids, I can remember being petrified about having to find a job that would require me to talk a lot. And I could only think that seeing Joe Biden stutter, that seeing the president of the US stutter would at least lessen the burden and lessen those fears a little bit for lots of kids out there who stutter. So I'm very excited about it.
What a great perspective. Eric, thanks so much for joining us this morning from New York.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.